Boy, it is a rain-soaked day here in Northeast Ohio, but it's always a good time to talk about sports in the Cleveland scene and the Ohio scene as well. And as we always tend to get into Ohio State stuff as well. Will that basketball team make the tournament? Boy, oh boy, do they need a win in their last game, and then probably a run in the Big Ten tournament to do so. And if they do make it, we will talk about that. Yes, we are paying attention to them, but you got to earn it. The women's team still doing big things, and they face Illinois in the Big Ten tournament coming up very, very soon. If they haven't played already, today or tomorrow, whatever. I forgot to look at the date of that game, but they will have their opening Big Ten game with Illinois, who advanced yesterday. This is the Voice of Land, brought to you in part by the great people at Greeny Sports Cards. GreenySportsCards.com. You can check there or go directly to GreenyShows.com, see where they're going to be next. Of course, the Great Lakes Collectors Convention is coming up in April. They are actually teaming with, I think it's Strongsville's. There's another group, I think it is Strongsville Collectors, to do like a joint show. So it's going to be even bigger than it normally is. Got to get out there. We will definitely be out there as well. Whether we're doing a show or not, I don't know. But we're going to try to find a way to get to the show. Check everything out. A lot of good finds all the time. And I mean, shout out to them for, Steve, still going through physical therapy for some stuff. He's out at the CSU women's basketball game yesterday where they win in a barn burner 81-80 in their Horizon League tournament. And, they're doing all this stuff. They're live every single Tuesday, doing eBay bids and things like that. And proud partners with the Crunch too. And we just thank them, Steve, Jeremy, and their entire team for partnering with us. And again, a lot of big stuff coming for them still in 2026.
Right.
And like I said, they partner with the Crunch, and I'm sure just like everybody else, we'll be rooting on the Crunch, who are in Chicago this weekend. I think trying to get themselves maybe clinching a playoff spot, but they got Chicago, and then final weekend is Toronto and Rockford, and boy oh boy do they owe those two teams a little payback. So a lot still to play for in the final three. I'm Kevin Arnold. He is Ryan Mosser. We are partnered with LPV Productions. Thank you to Peter Tell, the production director, for getting us all started when we did this just a few years ago on video, and it's transformed and gotten better and all those kinds of things. And the only place really to start, I would say, is with the Browns. And one of the big stories making news over the last 24 hours, Ryan, Myles Garrett speeding down the highway again, cited for 94 and a 70. But if you do watch the video and you saw the report from the I-Team, Ed and Peggy Gallick on Fox 8, now I know TMZ has picked up on it, ESPN, like the body cam footage of the officer. It seems like kind of giving him a pass. Like maybe he was going faster than 94, maybe over 100, and then saw the cop, and then they, clocked it with the, like that first speed that they saw when he hit the brakes, started hitting the brakes there, and they, that type of thing. He's an athlete. We know that these things happen. So I hope the officer doesn't get in trouble, but because there's plenty of time when they didn't have body cams on and these things were definitely happening. But Ryan, do you take issue with this? Is it a blip on your radar? How did you react when you saw this?
I mean, honestly, I'm not losing sleep over it. I mean, it's a dumb decision. It's immature. And it's embarrassing, honestly, that a guy with his, platform has racked up this many citations. In the grand scheme of things, the Browns, the Browns universe is a traffic ticket, it's not a scandal. It's not suspension. It's not a locker room crisis. The dude is driving too fast again. But what, stops being harmless. This isn't a one-off, this is a pattern. This is an obvious pattern, and patterns eventually cash out, I think. We've already seen how close this can get to disaster when he flipped his Porsche, a couple of years ago with a passenger in the car. Luckily they walked away with minor injuries, and thank God for that. But, that crash could have gone the other way, and, in a heartbeat. When you're pushing a car past 100 miles per hour on public roads, you're not being reckless anymore. You're being negligent. You're gambling with your life, with someone else's life, and the lives of whoever happens, to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. that's the part that sticks with me, honestly. I'm a former police officer. Yeah, we all speed, here and there, but to be this reckless, this negligent, this often is bad. I'm not asking the guy, to be a monk. I'm asking him to stop. I'm not asking him to stop loving cars either. I'm saying, buy some land, rent a track, go, find legal ways to scratch that itch. You're a superstar athlete with generational money. You have options that don't involve turning I-71 into a drag strip. But until something forces him to change, and I hope to God it's not tragedy, but I don't think he will. I mean, that's the pattern. Clearly, we have nine instances of this now. And that pedestal that he's built on, the one that is built on sacks and accolades and defensive player of the year conversations, that thing can crumble fast if the wrong night means the wrong decision. He's the single season sack king in Cleveland. He's the face of the franchise. He's a generational talent, the next Hall of Fame player for the Browns, but he's also one bad moment away from, a headline that nobody wants to read. So this is getting ridiculous at this point. I just hope that his license gets taken away. As far as the officer, like I said, I'm a former police officer. It's all based off discretion. So, I mean, you do have a little bit of discretion with that, but nonetheless, it never looks good when, you look like you're giving your superstar a break because he's a superstar, especially since this is a disgusting pattern. So.
And he was going through Wayne County, through the Worcester area, and people were like, whoa, boy, how is he going through Worcester? Well, if he was taking pictures at the Miami of Ohio basketball game, then
Right.
that night of Friday, and then it was the early morning hours of Saturday, as the clock and day turned, that he was coming back up to this area at that time. Look, this is a habitual issue for Myles Garrett, and a lot of people today, like, if you don't take issue with it, you don't. Now, I think Emmett Golden of ESPN Cleveland, ESPN Radio, brought up a decent point. Like, why am I going to put more care into a person than they're going to put into themselves?
True.
That's true. So it's not like something we're going to spend days and like hours and that type of stuff on, but it is an issue, and it's something like people just tell you to get over it. Just like they tell people that still don't like Deshaun Watson to get over it, to move on. Guess what? That's not how it works. I'm not here to tell people that have moved on, moved past it, that they're wrong. I'm not here to tell you that. But don't tell if you have moved on, have some respect and some understanding for those that haven't. And like, this isn't something I want to just forget about. Are we going to, definitely two way different levels of, like what was accused of Deshaun Watson versus what Myles Garrett was cited for and continues to be cited for. We know that. We know the severity levels and the differences in that. But it's still, you're taking other people's lives into your own hands by trying to get some sort of adrenaline rush. And I do have an issue with it. Are we going to see him sack a quarterback in September and be all excited? Like, two things can be true at once. Like, I know that the Browns aren't going to, they need Myles Garrett on that defense, and he's not going to, even though Mike Tannenbaum wants it to happen, Myles Garrett's not getting traded after signing that contract. And
Mike Tannenbaum.
Just, if you want to tell someone you want to go to the Frozen card and tell someone to let it go, like, I want to tell Mike Tannenbaum to let it go in terms of a trade of Myles Garrett. But, I mean, it's just, it's unnecessary. And guess what? Like, I know we have these debates all the time, Ryan, on like whether Myles Garrett's a leader or not a leader. I mean, I those probably should be put to bed, because I think we know kind of where he is. Like, if there's any sort of leadership, it's just by example, like his work ethic and stuff like that.
Right.
But Shedeur Sanders was cited for speeding, a couple months after he was drafted here, and he sees Myles Garrett get off with it, and then if that's someone that if he is into speeding and sees Myles Garrett's not going to get anything to him, like other players see this. He's on his phone during meetings or tablets or whatever. Like, it seems small and stuff that we shouldn't care about because you're going to sack the quarterback 20 times and just be an absolutely wreak havoc on opponents' offenses. We know that, and they have to scheme for it. And sometimes they They decide not to try to win a game. They just try to beat Myles Garrett or stop Myles Garrett. We know all that. But these little things, if you want this Browns organization to ever go anywhere,
Yeah.
it is these little things that go a long way in terms of building organizational culture and a good culture and establish and maintain that culture. Those are the things that, as small as it may seem, punch big holes in the culture. And again, taking other people's lives into it. Like, I know no one got hurt this time. In driving school, you were told, like, as you're going at faster speeds, you don't have to turn the wheel as much. It's less and less. One false little move or a speed wobble,
Mm-hmm.
like, so it should be taken seriously. Is it something we have to, again, just talk about like every single hour, every single day? No. But it's still something that, like, I mean, dude, like you're about to be, I think he's what, 29, going to be turning 30 at some
Right.
point.
Grown.
Like,
And I mean, this is his 9th time. I mean,
yeah.
God.
He's averaging one a year. Like, that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot.
So much.
once a year, every year you've been here, and that's just the ones he was cited for. We all know, like, there's probably been times where he's just been given a warning. Like, it's, I don't know.
And probably many more where he's just, not been pulled over. So,
Look, I know contracts have these things, and I'm like, tell you what you can and can't do. Like, you can't play basketball. Chloe Kim said that she can't teach her boyfriend Myles Garrett how to snowboard because he's not allowed to do it based on his contract. And is he allowed to go to like a racetrack and, like, be a part of that stuff where it's like a safer and more controlled environment going with speed? I don't know, but there's got to be ways with the money that he has, the notoriety he has, to scratch this itch.
Yeah.
In a more legal and a more safe, controlled manner. Anything can always happen, but you're allowing way too many variables to be a part of it,
Right.
and I just think it's ridiculous and dumb. That's all.
He could be in an instant, a monster on the field to a monster in real life, and that's awful to think about. Real quick, transitioning, speaking of Myles Garrett, did you see the recent clip of Logan Paul talking on, I think it was his podcast, about how he could, in a boxing match, beat anyone in the NFL? He's specifically talking about Tom Brady at this flag football game that they're going to do internationally, and then he specifically also called out Myles Garrett and said he could destroy Myles Garrett.
Yeah, so let me put this into perspective, and I'll let you kind of give your take, because I know where you're going with this. Like, I think we like kind of read each other's mind, but I'm a big WWE fan. I'm not a fan of Logan Paul the person,
right,
let alone the character of Logan Paul. I know he has a lot of talent for the business, and he's only going to get better and better now that he's full time. Like, this issue with football players, like, it does stem from Tom Brady and kind of speaking out of pocket. I think it was during Super Bowl week or some sort of big event where there was a bunch of like podcasts and radio shows.
I think it was Radio Row or something.
Yeah, something like that, where he called pro wrestling cute. Kind of another like backhanded comment of like calling it fake or whatever. Like, again, there's a reason why these men and women, like, they still tear ACLs, they're tearing muscles. Like, it is choreographed sports entertainment live that's still taking a big physical toll on your body. If anybody thinks that mat in pro wrestling, in WWE, it's not well cushioned. It's not a cushion. Like, it's plywood underneath with like maybe a little bit of cushion, and that's WWE. A lot of these people that come from the indies, what are they setting up in high school gyms? That's not. And these guys are going on their backs, and women are going on their backs and their bellies and going down. Like, that takes a toll on your body, and that's why you see, some of these guys and women, they don't look as good in physical health as always. So, like, I understand him being frustrated with that. But on the other hand, this is Logan Paul being Logan Paul and thinking he's bigger than everybody else. And, like, that's not a character. That's who he is. That's who Jake Paul is. That's who Logan Paul is. That's why we say they're not from Cleveland. They're from Westlake. I apologize to anybody else that's from Westlake. You are all from Cleveland. We just separate those two on their own little island in Westlake because they don't actually represent us. And this is someone that, yes, he is a trained boxer. If you know anything about Myles Garrett, if you actually paid attention, Logan, he has studied at Strong Style, one of the MMA training groups here in Northeast Ohio. Like he is trained like that type of level. Stipe Miocic has trained in the same place. You see NFL players train in boxing and jiu-jitsu and other combat things in the offseason to kind of help them with being like stronger hands and getting through blocks or being able to hold blocks or whatever they feel like that's going to help them do. Like there is some training there, and Myles Garrett can just lay on top of you and you crush you, dude. So like it's ridiculous, but I think people like when they're having the conversation, they lose like where it stems from. And I do have issues with Tom Brady calling pro wrestling cute because it's not cute. It takes a lot within you, even though it's choreographed, even though it's, it's predetermined entertainment that is still live and requires a lot of physical and mental ability inside that ring and behind the scenes.
You're gonna. I loved it. I love that he called it cute. To be honest, I mean, I understand. Of course, I mean, he's jumping off the top rope, doing backflips, landing, on guys. Of course, there is a level of incredible athleticism that goes with it. But I mean, I'm not a giant wrestling fan. I wrestled in high school. I did, traditional wrestling. I never really got into it just because I never understood the storylines. And then, I felt like I was already out of the loop already. So it's hard to get in those. Nonetheless, I still respect it. I think it's a great entertainment. So many people love it. And it is like you said, there's a lot of athleticism that you need to have it, but Logan has talked about him being like, oh, no problem. Have you seen me do WWE? Like no problem. I will be one of the best out there on the football field. I think that's a level of arrogance that Tom was just trying to bring him down with, not necessarily, smashing the entertainment or the sport of, wrestling, but like you just, it's like comparing apples and oranges, and just because you're incredibly athletic and can do backflips doesn't mean you're necessarily going to go out there and tear it up against some of the best who's ever done it on the field. I think that's where Tom was getting at.
Right. And that's that. I totally understand that. And I agree with that. How low, like, I think it says something about Logan and his commitment to the business that this happened. But like you've seen it even all the way back to the Tonight Show. I think it was Johnny Carson, and it was I think was it Jerry the King Lawler, and then oh my gosh, a comedian back in the set. Like we've seen, people say like fake or something like that, and like pro wrestlers, sports entertainers, like it triggers them because they know what they are putting their bodies through. And I think more people are understanding it because they're more open about what like the basis is. Look, all the wrestlers have been around for a long time. They hate the Netflix series called Unreal, but it's doing great business for them and it's bringing other people in because it shows like how storylines are created by the scene and like behind the scenes, and how they have to pivot when an injury happens or something like that. And yeah, old school wrestlers hate it, but I think it's bringing more fans in because that releases after the fact, after you've gone through those stories. And yet, just maybe was it this past weekend or a weekend before that, it was Elimination. This is just an example. It was Elimination Chamber, and Seth Rollins, who's been doing a lot of stuff with NFL Network, and he's probably going to become an NFL analyst at some point, which he's never played in, but he is damn good at it. He was injured and telling people like, it's still going to be a little bit more time before I come back from my shoulder injury. And he literally had surgery on it, but he was actually going to come back, and he shows up there and like the crowd goes nuts. So like they know that how things are made, and yet the story still gets them because they don't know beforehand.
Right.
So like there's still that grab. So like when Tom Brady said cute, it sucks that Logan Paul is the face of this, but I think if any other wrestler, I think they probably would have reacted even more. It may have gotten a little more heated, because
Right.
that is like a trigger word. Like they're equating cute to fake to some of the other things that people take shots at him for. Well, I understand Tom like was trying to bring Logan Paul down, and he needs to be brought down like 20 pegs, if 20 million pegs, if anything. But but that's like the other side of it. That's where that reaction's coming from. It's just dumb that it's Logan Paul and
Right.
nobody takes anything he does seriously.
I thought it's interesting.
Yeah. I'm just, just trying to give perspective, but like, again, I get it. I get where Tom's coming from. I get where he's coming from. But for him to say that he's gonna beat these guys in an actual boxing match and stuff like that, he doesn't train on that as much anymore.
Right.
And again, these NFL players are going through other combat sports and combat training where they have like basic skills down. If they went through like a month or 2 month promotion for a fight against Logan Paul, they took the basics and ratcheted it up a level or 2 levels, then with their power and their speed, like I'm Logan, like you're not ready for that. I'm sorry. Like
No.
it's not gonna happen. What we are ready for though is more and more NFL news. And next week, Monday, starts the legal tampering period.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure there's been some illegal tampering going on back at the combine and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think we all know that. Like we don't need a documentary, Unreal, NFL Unreal, to see the behind the scenes that stuff's going on. We know, and yet like the breaking news still gets us, still hauls us in. There's rumors surrounding the Browns. Everybody wants to connect every quarterback to us, Ryan.
Yep.
That's available. I think people don't understand. Like they just, again, everybody has hope. Everybody has excitement. They want to see like big names come here. I don't think Linderbaum's coming here, people. If he does, great. I don't think so. I think you still need to reality stick needs to hit everybody a little bit. Still, there's still a $230 million quarterback on this roster that they can do some maneuvering and make some moves in free agency, but they can't do a lot.
Yeah.
How do you feel about what are you expecting going into next week?
I have no idea, man. I mean, it's nice that we at least have one move that's made. With Titus Howard, I think that's the kind of deal that tells you exactly, who Andrew Berry is. He essentially turned Kenny Pickett, a 5th round pick into a 5th round. That pick that he got from Pickett into a starting offensive lineman. A 5th rounder gives you a chance at a tackle, but maybe he develops, maybe he doesn't, maybe he's on the practice squad by Halloween. Instead you get a guy who's played real snaps, held up against NFL pass rushers and can step in immediately. He hasn't given up a sack, at least all last year, I know for a fact, but I thought maybe 2 years. I don't.
It was back in 2024, but it was towards the end of the season. It was it was either a game in the playoffs or a couple games at the end of that season, and then it translated into the whole 2025. So not fully 2 years, but it's still been a long time.
Yeah, nonetheless, better than what we've had. I mean, he fits with the Browns one up front too. I mean, he's got length, he's got movement skills. The ability to survive on an island. He's not an all-pro, of course, but he doesn't have to be necessarily. He just has to stabilize the right side, keep the pocket from collapsing, and give this offense a clean runway. I think that his impact is immediate. Obviously, I mean, we have so many holes in this offensive line. It's nice to have one anchor down. I mean, you protect whoever the quarterback's going to be better. You run the ball with more consistency with him. You hopefully start to stop continuing to play musical chairs with these offensive linemen. And you can walk into the draft, feeling like you have don't have to force the right tackle issue, which could be incredibly important, especially with Francis Malinois from the right tackle out of Miami, projected to go top 10. Maybe a lot of people said maybe in 6 overall. I thought it was a smart trade, a necessary trade. I think his versatility, he can move inside as well to guard, which I think is important as well. So, I mean, is he an all-pro? No, but could he be someone better? What is his name? I'm blanking now. Chris Hubbard. Someone a little better than Chris Hubbard, who's versatile, can play on the line. That's nice to have. So I like it.
It's nice to have. I didn't like hearing, John McClain, who's covered nearly 50 years, covered sports down in Houston and covered the NFL down in Houston, and now covering the Texans directly. They call him the General for a reason. Him and Tony Grossi, they get the General moniker because they've been covering stuff for so long in their
Sure.
respective areas. But he said he felt like he was on like the 50% side that felt like Titus played better at left guard than he does right tackle. I mean, again, you need someone serviceable, and I don't need to be hearing his name every game from
Right.
an official's. I don't need to hear his number every game from an official's mouth, or seeing a replay and someone's getting around him like every single time, and unabated to the quarterback, basically. Like just like get in front of people. He's really good in pass protection. The run protection he's going to need work on, but I think you have one of the most well-respected offensive line coaches in the league outside of Bill Callahan here. I can't remember his name for some reason. I've heard it so many times, and now it's not even, it's not coming to me. I'm sure you'll come up with it much faster than I can. But I mean, it's good to see there. I wonder if Joel Bitonio's decision comes down tomorrow or like over the weekend, to kind of, give the Browns time to, really situate what they want to do in free agency. Because a lot of people have talked about, lower end moves, fortifying the interior part of the offensive line, and maybe, trying to get the tackle and a backup, or, some depth on that offensive line in the draft. Like that would definitely be kind of the way to go, the way to balance all of that. Did you find his name?
Oh no, I didn't even look it up. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. You don't need to. Don't worry. You don't need to. I don't.
Okay.
Someone will get mad at me at some
listening.
point. Yeah, someone will get mad at me at some point.
It's fine.
They're
new. It's not like they've been in the door for more than 2 weeks. So,
does a wide receiver trade come? I don't know. Moore getting traded to the Bills. So, they got to try. The Bills definitely have to try to get wide receivers. I've seen people like mock us in the draft, offensive line at both picks, maybe, trade down or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how you feel, but like I know that I want offensive line and like even like 2 offensive linemen and a wide receiver within those first 3 picks, 6, 24, and 39, or like however those shake out, wherever they end up drafting. I just know I want the wide receiver first.
Okay.
That's that. Like I want a really good wide receiver. I know that people say there's no blue chips in this draft, but I want a really good wide receiver that has the ability to be a number 1 on this team, and I want that taken care of. Cheaper rookie deal. I want that first. If people don't, like, that's fine, but Monroe Freeling is definitely intriguing. He's the only one of the top names being mentioned that actually plays left tackle and wouldn't have to like learn a new position. Great. I want offense, man.
Yeah.
Shedeur, Deshaun, Dylan, like whoever's playing quarterback, great. Man. Oh, Shedeur Sanders takes the snap. He's back. He's looking. He's got plenty of time. His offensive line, holding up great here. He does get flushed out to his right. Still looking. Oh, Jerry Jeudy coming open on the sideline, wide open. Shedeur puts it on him and drops
it. I was about to say, you're in a dream. No, that's reality now. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, except for the offensive line and, all that.
Yeah. But, we didn't get any yards. We didn't get any close to the end zone. We don't get any points for the offensive line playing well. Like, yes, offensive line matters. The trenches still matter. That's still where the game of football is won, Ryan. But, oh, man, I feel like Nathan Zegura right now. Like, he's like my spirit animal. The way him and Bo Bishop talk on Cleveland Browns Daily. Weapons. Like, that's, like, in my head, that's what I am. They're the out in the world manufacturing of how my brain goes.
Yeah, I would be happy with a receiver at 6. I think Barry's going to trade back. That I mean, he
Yeah, I
always
know.
trades back.
That's the most likely scenario in my head too.
Nonetheless, if one of the top prospects are there, even if they're on defense, Lincoln comes in right on
Lincoln,
time. You know,
always.
I'm taking Caleb Downs. I'm taking Arvell Reese. I'm taking David Bailey.
Yeah.
Of course, I'd be happy with Carnell Tate, even Jordan Tyson, even Mekhi Lemon at 6, or maybe trading back a little bit. But I don't know, man. I don't think we are a year away from winning. And I don't think that we are going to be relevant next year. So why are we going to pass on, I think elite players. I mean, forget what Caleb, the things with, there's news with Caleb Downs. Have you heard about this with the combine where you might have some ACL injury?
I love that the Pat McAfee show put that.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Pat. What did he say about it?
So it was early this week too. After that stuff started coming out,
right?
I think it was. I don't even know the Twitter account that it was, but
right. I remember. I don't remember either.
But they were talking about. I think it was even Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday because they're out in Arizona at the USA World Baseball Classic teams camp out in Arizona. And then they came back to Indianapolis on Tuesday. And, they were basically saying, we've had 4 NFL teams reach out to us telling us that is not even anywhere close. No one's concerned about his medicals. And then again, this is all him reporting during the show. He said, oh, I just got a text from a person with another NFL team. This is number 5. Plus the other people we've kind of heard from around NFL circles. But this is team number 5 saying the same thing that Caleb Downs, there's no worry about this. I don't know why that came out.
Okay. Yeah. So I would still take him at 6. I would sprint the car. I have a problem with passing on elite prospects just because yes, Carnell Tate is nice. I think he's the 5th prospect on my board right now when I'm doing my big board, but I have guys above them and I could see some of these guys falling. If Arvell Reese is there at 6, I understand that that's, taking a position that we already took last year high in the draft, first pick in the 2nd round with Carson Schlesinger. But nonetheless, could you imagine, Arvell Reese coming off the edge, not to mention, defending all the way true side of the sideline with Carson Schlesinger? That'd be incredible. Not to mention safety is a position of need. Ronnie Harrison is a unrestricted free agent. There's speculation he might come back, of course, but imagine Caleb Downs, who I think is an elite prospect in that defense for the next 10 years. You don't pass on elite prospects just because, your offense needs weapons, especially when you're not a piece or 2 away from winning. We are an entire offensive line away other than right tackle and 2 or 3 receivers, a tight end, and maybe a quarterback away. We are not a year away, guys. I'm going for the elite prospect, even if it's defense.
Tony Rizzo, and I make sure I try to credit wherever I can because that's the typical protocol. I saw a tweet out there, about something that Andre Knott said on our station today. There was no credit for it. He said it on our station. That's where the report came from about Travis Bazzana. There was no credit, so I try to credit where I can. But Tony Rizzo always says, you either draft the elite talent or you play against it for the next 5 to 10 years. So and still part of the draft ideas, the conversations are going to change because of what they actually do go after in free agency. They said that they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be more aggressive next year, but they're going to be more aggressive this year than they were last year. And those are things that Andrew Berry only says, if it's going to be if he says something, if he gives you a nugget, you got to take it. You got to listen to it. You can't, as much as we have great front office people that say a lot without saying anything, if you want to know what the team's going to do, you have to really listen, because when the nuggets come out, they don't give you much, so take what they give you.
I don't know. To push back, the whole Travis Hunter thing last year, that nugget was, he's an elite prospect. He's generational, this and that. And he was just literally throwing sugar on him to get that trade going. And I don't blame him. So you do have to take it with a grain of salt a little bit, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, you do. And no, that's very true. I just, I see that, I don't know. Last year when I heard him say that, it felt weird. to me. Like
fabricated almost. Yeah.
to put that much glaze on a prospect that like people already knew was supposed to be, elite and like top 5, top 3 in the draft, if
Right.
not the second pick after the quarterback was going to go number 1 to Tennessee this year, to like say like we are going to be more aggressive than last year, like, but to be honest, like this isn't like the big free agent year for us. Like that's not where we go. This isn't where we go like all in on it still. But to say like, so it hit me a little more real than it was like we. So like I think that's the only reason I bring it up that way. But
Yeah.
you're right. You have to take everything every GM says with a grain of salt. Look,
And I
they
think
said that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Didn't they say that? Didn't he say Baker Mayfield is our guy? And then a couple of weeks later, you turn around and you find out they had been on a 5-6 month odyssey doing background checks on Deshaun Watson,
Right.
and he's coming here, and Baker's out the door.
Yeah. I think my worst case scenario is if we are there at 6 and Caleb Downs is there and he uses him as that elite prospect, as trade bait to trade back. And, and then I'm going to be screaming on draft day. But I get it.
Something to really look for, though, coming out, like any immediate availability that Andrew Berry does from now until like that last press conference the week before the draft. If he talks about Caleb Downs, how does he talk about him? Because then if it mimics what he did with Travis Hunter, then you start to then you start to realize we're not getting the truth, and you're more of a liar than you are a truth teller to us. So just a added little
it's part of the game, though. So I mean, I get it. Just dumb.
Yeah, playing games all over the place. But before we do kind of tidy things up here on the show with the Cavs, because like I feel like we should be talking more about them because they're actually playing. But we know the conversations that drive viewership and everything. Like we got to play our game too. Like you do have a prospect for us, and I know last year you kind of did ones that were off, kind of off the radar a little bit. Yeah, and I'm sure you have a few of those guys, but do you have a top 10 on your big board right now? And then which prospect do you want to take a look at tonight?
Yeah, there was speculation that this person was in Berea today visiting, so I figured I'd talk about him. There were also reports made, maybe that was not the truth, but I'm going to talk about it regardless. Ty Simpson, quarterback at Alabama, is getting a lot of buzz with the Browns recently, so I'm going to break him down. I did already break him down on my week 1 episode 2 weeks ago on the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast. Go check that out. But I'm going to do this again, and I'll talk about him, his background, how he plays, and then basically how he'll fit with the Browns as well. So I'm not saying necessarily I want to draft him, but I'm going to start breaking down players on this here too. So
I like that.
Yeah, Ty Simpson, he checks in 6'2", 205, built like a modern dual threat quarterback who thrives in the offense that he's moving. His game is built on, twitch. He's got quick feet, quick eyes, quick release. The ball jumps out of his hand with, compact motion, and he's got, natural elasticity, to change arm angles without losing accuracy, which I think is really important. His tape, he's the type of quarterback who forces defenses to defend every blade of grass horizontally and vertically. He's not one of those statue quarterback. He's not statuesque, a pocket passer. He's a rhythm plus creator who fits best in spread looks, RPO heavy structures, and offenses that, want to stress defenses with movement and spacing. He arrived at Alabama with the reputation of being a natural playmaker, a kid who could improvise, extend plays, and throw with, instinctive touch. His early years required patience, obviously, sitting behind older quarterbacks while, learning the demands of a high pressure SEC program. That time sharpened him. When he finally took over, he brought a different energy to the offense. Mobility is a main thing. Also confidence, a competitive edge that teammates truly fed off of. Coaches constantly, highlighted his maturity, his willingness to grind and the way that he elevated the group, just with his urgency. His path has been about development and resilience, and he enters the draft with a strong blend of tools and temperament. He plays like a quarterback who's, plugged into the game at all times. His feet are always alive. And his tape shows that his eyes move with purpose, and he transitions from read throws with real real urgency. He's comfortable attacking the middle of the field on RPOs. He understands leverage, and he's decisive when he sees a window. His arm isn't built on raw power necessarily. It's built on flexibility. He can throw from awkward platforms and change trajectories and deliver, accurate balls on the move. I'm not saying, I talked about this. I'm not saying he's necessarily Pat Mahomes, but that style of throw where he's off balance, but he can still deliver the throw.
Yeah.
He can deliver that, especially with his mobility. His intermediate accuracy, I think, stands out, especially when he's in rhythm. And when the structure breaks down, he becomes a problem because he can't escape, he can't extend, he can turn chaos into explosive plays. He moves in the pocket with urgency and awareness. I think he can climb, he slides, he can escape pressure. There are moments where he obviously can drift or gets a little too bouncy with his footwork, likes to move a little too soon instead of going through his full progressions. But his release is tight and efficient. He resets quickly after movement. Under pressure, his mechanics can loosen. Like I said, he does like to run, but his natural accuracy still shows up more often than not. I think he's at his best when the offense is on schedule. With quick game, movement throws, rhythm concepts, but he's also capable of creating when the play breaks down. His arm talent, he wins with creativity, not brute force necessarily. He has enough velocity to hit tight windows, but his real strength is the ability to manipulate the ball. He can layer throws over underneath defenders, drop touch passes into space, and fire off platform without sacrificing placement. His deep ball is timing based, not brute based. He wins when he anticipates and not when he tries to muscle it. I think where he separates himself is his athletic profile. From a lot of quarterbacks in this class specifically, he's a legitimate running threat quarterback, not just a scrambler, not just someone here and there, someone who can be used on design keepers, boots, zone read concepts. He has a quick acceleration. He can change direction smoothly and consistently turns broken plays into positive gains. His combine performance backed up the tape as well. Strong agility numbers, fluid movement drills. I think he projects as a modern NFL quarterback with real starter upside. His game fits today's league. A lot of movement, spacing, quick decisions, the ability to create when, structure collapses. He's tailor-made for an offense that wants to blend RPOs, play action movement, and tempo, but with continued refined movement in the pocket, foot discipline, footwork. He has the upside to become a dynamic, versatile starter who brings energy and playmaking to the offense. I think specifically, with the Browns, I think this is where it gets interesting. He already has a real connection to Cleveland. Todd Monken, we tried to recruit him years ago when he was at Georgia, and Simpson openly acknowledged, at the combine that he'd love to play for Monken. That matters. Relationship matters. And Monken has been vocal about how much he respects Simpson's game as well. From a schematic standpoint, Simpson fits what Monken and Trey Switzer want to build. This offense is built on movement, spacing, and stressing defenses horizontally. It's quarterback friendly, but it demands the athleticism and quick processing. Two things that Simpson probably has his strongest traits. He's not Lamar Jackson, of course, but he's absolutely the type of dual threat quarterback who can, thrive in a system that blends, his RPOs, boots, and quick hitting concepts that Todd Monken has. It's also interesting fact to note that Ty Simpson's dad, Jason, is a very good friend of Todd Monken. They're very close. If he does get drafted with, to the Browns, and would he win the job? Given the Browns' current quarterback landscape, Shador as the projected starter. As of now, Deshaun Watson trying to get healthy and push for that job. Dylan Gabriel, developing with puberty, let alone on the field. No, I'm just kidding. The team openly exploring outside options. Simpson could walk into the room with opportunity. He's not guaranteed a day one starter, but he's talented enough to compete immediately. And I think in Monken's offense, that rewards, mobility, timing, and creativity. He could absolutely push for a job sooner than people expect. Ty Simpson isn't just a theoretical fit for the Browns. I think he could be a real fit. The relationship with Monken is real. The scheme fit is real. The opportunity is real. And if the Browns want a quarterback who brings juice, movement, and the upside, Simpson checks every box.
I don't know how you feel about this, but if he were to be brought in, I feel like somebody has to go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that person is going to have to be Dylan. Obviously he can go to Atlanta. Kevin wanted him anyway. So,
I I want to see Shador be this. I'm a Shador fan. Like I'm all about Shador. I want to see him get a chance. All those types of things.
Right.
So the aunties aren't going to like what I'm about to say, even though I just qualified with the actual truth. I feel like it would have to be Shador that goes.
I don't know.
Be-
I don't know.
Only because like you're bringing, especially like where Simpson would be drafted, probably probably gonna be later first round if he makes it to day 2, that type of thing. I
I
mean,
would
he
not
could
take
be.
him in the first round, by the way, if I'm the Browns.
I
So
and totally understand. You know that quarterbacks get overdrafted all the time because it's the most important position in all sports.
sure.
But if that guy were to be brought here, um, he's getting, say he gets more of a chance than Shador does, or whatever. Like the the noise around the Browns that they don't need. People clamoring for Shador. The first thing that Ty Simpson does wrong in a training camp with fans there, the people are going to be chanting Shador's. Like that's not conducive to Ty Simpson's development. That's not conducive to Shador trying to live out his dream and the whole mess. And the Browns just aren't. I don't know. I just don't think that when they made the choice to bring Shador here, I don't think that they understood what the noise around him was going to be. I don't have an issue with it,
I don't know.
but they don't. I don't think that they know how to handle that stuff.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, you're naive. I mean, I'm not saying you, just the general fan in general. Is naive if you don't think that this is not going to be a quarterback competition. It absolutely is. Shador, yes, is promising, and he's lovable and this and that, but he has not earned anything. He has not. I mean, yeah, cool, Pro Bowl. That doesn't mean anything either. I mean, this is an open competition, especially with a new head coach, entirely new, coaching staff. It's wide open. I do think they will bring an outside source in. I don't know if that's through the draft. I would love to get like someone like Taylor Green in like the 4th round if we're going to go quarterback. I think he'll be there, and I think has the highest ceiling. He just has some developmental flaws, but in terms of athleticism, he's incredible, especially at the combine. I think he ran like a 4.36. Don't quote me on that, but something insane at 6'6". It's just. Give me that guy, but nonetheless, I think they're going to bring in a veteran. I don't think they're going to roll in with the expectation that either Shador Sanders, Deshaun Watson, or Dylan Gabriel is going to be the starting quarterback with only those 3 people in the room. They have to bring in someone else.
Now, let me be clear. If another quarterback was brought in, you had to get rid of one. I would want to get rid of Dylan. Don't disrespect Dylan, but that would be the guy that would be my choice.
Bye-bye.
I'm just saying, I understand there's going to be a competition. I'm not saying you're coming at me directly. I understand. Sure. Trust me, there's going to be people that don't realize that. And why I'm saying that is there's going to be a competition. And let's say Shador doesn't win it. He's here and he doesn't win it. People are going to be like, they just don't like him. There's everything's against him instead of it was his play that made that. No one will believe that it was his. If you love Shador, no one of that group will believe that it was his play that lost him the job.
Right.
That it was, or his play wasn't as good as the guy that won the job. Like just from evaluation through what they can do in OTAs, mini camps, and then of course into training camp, which Monken doesn't want. I don't know how you operate a quarterback competition when you can't touch each other or anything like that. You really don't have pads on in OTAs and mini camp. But they do have the extra time because they have a new coach, so they get to start earlier. They have more off-season workouts than other teams with returning coaches. But so it'll be interesting to see how all of this goes. How do you feel about Kyler?
Nah, I'm not really.
I'm a hell no to the no.
I mean, if they bring him in, whatever. I mean, cool. Bringing someone that can be. I mean, I think he'll want to get a little bit of money, for sure. I don't know if we can necessarily afford him, even though I don't necessarily want him on the team. So that's catch-22. But no, thanks. I guess no, I'm good.
I was driving home from work today, and I heard someone say was trying to say the Steelers should go after Kyler, but in their explanation of why they're saying that, it sounded like they were just saying it because the Steelers are desperate for a quarterback because they said I don't like his size and all that with December and January and the AFC North and everything. That's I'm not trying to put down Kyler because I know he has talent and all those kinds of things and he would be one of the better quarterbacks we brought here since 1999 from his track record. But I just I'm not like you have to be 6'4", 6'5" in this division, but 5'9", like
Yeah.
that in that frame, like that's not gonna against guys like T.J. Watt and some of the people that I'm sure Baltimore will revamp their defense with. Like, sorry, no, no, hell no to the no, no, no.
Real quick, Sir Murgatroyd on YouTube. Sanders' ego would not allow him to be a backup. Yeah, I could see that. I don't necessarily. I mean, as far as ego, like Buddy hasn't really earned anything specifically in the NFL to have an ego. I understand he's internet famous, he's social media famous, he has an entourage, he always has cameras with him. So I get that side of it, but if he truly wants a future in the NFL, he's gonna have to bite his tongue and put his nose down and win that job, or else he's just gonna fizzle out like all these other Browns quarterbacks. Deshaun Kaiser, Johnny Manziel, he'll just be another name on the jersey. So
my only pushback to that, and this isn't because like I don't see some truth in what they just said. I
right,
think that is putting too much of Dion's ego on Shador, and like I whether you believe it was him or not, like I feel like his ego let him be a backup because he was fourth string, never got first team reps, and just always did and said the right thing last year. Like
right,
someone with an ego doesn't do those things. Like even if they feel like that's not the position they should be in, like even publicly, if they have an ego, they're not gonna care about how their image is publicly. Like their ego is their ego, and they're gonna let that show through. In the public eye, he did and said the right things till he got the opportunity to go out there. So I know he has an ego, and he has the Sanders ego. I don't know that it's as big as Dion's. And but I also think that there is some humility to him as well. I feel like there is part of it is him, part of it is a narrative around him that I don't think is. It's like everything is somewhere in between.
yeah.
The
I think
narrative around him and kind of how he presented himself. I feel like that's somewhere down the middle. Not the greatest take in sports talk, but
yeah, I think one thing's for certain is if that happens, we go back to miming. So
yes,
yeah.
In the box. That's not how a mom goes. He actually talks, but we can't have dead air on a show like this. Switching over to the Cavs real quick. Again, I feel like we should have dealt more with that, but again, I was told, and now everybody's back on the bandwagon of the regular season doesn't matter. You beat the Pistons. Man, people were mad when they didn't beat them, and they didn't have a lot of their stars in Detroit, and yeah, they should have won that game, but like. You felt better coming out of that, and then they beat him at home. It's just the regular season. I'm sure the comment for the anonymous comment coming out of the Cavs locker room, I'm sure they'll get Detroit fired up if they meet in the playoffs. Like right now, just the regular season. Man, going into every game, it feels like there's a lot of pressure on the game. Cavs come out of it, they beat Detroit. Let's say they beat Boston on Sunday. Jason Tatum's back and all that kind of stuff. With how well they're playing, just the regular season, like we said that from the beginning, like we were going to be tuned in the whole year long, but like understood that nothing was going to be able to be determined about this team until we saw them in the playoffs. Right. Now they have to get healthy, and that's the biggest problem right now. Right now my head is telling me that they're being extra cautious with Donovan Mitchell.
Of course, yeah.
They're off. They're in the midst of being off for 4 days. Before they play, I think that they finished the season with like 13 games in their last 24 days of the season, or last 24 days of March. Excuse me. If he doesn't play on Sunday, that's when the concern will rise for me.
Yeah, I'm not concerned, especially if we continue, to find ways to win with with the injuries that we have. I think the Cavs are in one of those stretches where the roster looks like it's being held together by whatever tape and toughness the training staff can find. And somehow they're still pushing forward. Every night it feels like somehow someone new is out, someone else is banged up. The rotation is being redrawn on the fly. But I think the fight never really leaves this team. I actually went to the game. I went to the Detroit game 2 days ago. I got a front row reminder of that this week. I think this is actually the first game I've gone to this year since having two toddlers and a newborn. It's been kind of hard, but nonetheless, I was at that Pistons game, and the building was rocking. I thought it wasn't just loud; it felt like the whole arena was leaning forward to every possession.
Didn't come across on TV very well though. So
really?
it
wasn't full. It wasn't completely full. I did notice there was a lot of seats that were empty. I did standing room, but I had a lot of fun. Every big play, major roars. I thought
that's good to hear because it did and I know that sometimes on TV that stuff doesn't come through, but Janet can even attest this. I was streaming the TV stand up, get into it, stop just stop being a video game fan here where the head just goes side to side.
No, I honestly, I thought it was rocking. Of course, I had a drink or two, but nonetheless, I thought it was one of those nights where you remember why Cleveland basketball hits you in the chest. I don't know what made the atmosphere, wasn't available. Obviously, Mitchell, is still dealing with the groin issue. Harden, is playing through that fractured thumb. All these injuries. Strus, hasn't played a minute this season. Obviously, we had that new update with him. Hopefully, we can get going here soon. Dean Wade has been sidelined. Jared Allen left the game early when he clashed the knees. It's like basketball gods are testing how many pieces you can remove before the whole thing collapses. What I noticed, at least, instead of folding, the Cavs keep swinging. Mobley is looking sharp. He's starting to be aggressive, confident, and in rhythm. Harden, even with his thumb taped up, is bringing that steady presence to this team that they desperately need it. I've been talking about it for weeks. When he's on the floor, the offense actually breathes. The ball moves with purpose. Guys get their spots, the structure. Their structure. Not chaos. The role players are not just filling space. They're stepping into real responsibility, which I think is crazy important. Jalen Tyson, Keon Ellis, Dennis Schroeder, all getting important minutes, all making big plays. And it's all meaningful. And I think that's going to be important, especially if we're going to try to get through the second round of these playoffs. Finally, they're not just survival minutes; they're helping win games. I think Kenny Atkinson deserves a ton of credit too. He's juggling these lineups, that weren't even imagined a month ago, and he's keeping the group connected. Let alone the amount of practices that we've had as a total team since Harden's been here in general. Kenny Atkinson's walking a tightrope between protecting guys like Donovan Mitchell, and keeping them the team competitive and somehow doing both at the same time. If the Cavs get healthy, I think they're a nightmare matchup for anybody. Especially what we've seen so far. Even right now, even with half the roster still in the training room, they're proving something important. Their identity doesn't disappear when the stars sit. They still defend, they still compete, they still believe that they can beat anybody. And if they keep grinding like this, they're going to be a problem when the playoffs roll around. I pray that these injuries get away from this team. Go. Don't go anywhere else. I don't want to, but nonetheless, just get away from us. And then I think we have a really good shot here, man.
Part of making a deep run in the playoffs in a lot of professional leagues, part of that is luck. People don't want to admit that all the time, but part of it is luck. And sometimes, having the injury bug away from you, or the injury bug kind of aiding in your ability to make a run like that. You make the run. You still got to win 4 out of 7 games in every series, and you got to win 16 total to win a championship. It is a tough road, no matter how you shake it. I think what's good about this team is there's still room to be better. There's still room for growth. As hot as they have been since late December, I don't think that they're necessarily peaking at the wrong time. I don't think that they've peaked yet because, again, injuries, trying these rotations. I can't stand it on Twitter during games or X during games. People questioning the lineups that are out there. Kenny probably knows some of these lineups don't work.
Sure.
But he's got you still got to try because you never know. Just see it. And then he's just trying to get the most out of guys to try to get a win. And I think everything about this team will be determined based on how they play in the playoffs. I understand that. Not here to make any proclamations about this team, only based on what we saw in the regular season. I'm not here to, try to be ahead of the curve or anything like that. But I think people do need to realize one thing that you said about Kenny Atkinson. He deserves a lot of credit. This team through all of those struggles early and as much criticism that he got early in the season, he has helped weather the storm, and these guys are playing. And the other thing that I see is, again, determined by the playoffs and how they actually perform there. But I think you got some dogs on this team now in
Yep.
Schroeder and Ellis, and
Hmm.
Tyson is becoming an absolute dog. And Jared Allen, hopefully it's just bang knees and maybe needs
Yeah.
a few days or a week to kind of get things back going. I need to see that Jared Allen in the playoffs. I need to see that dog. I need to see the Schroeder in the playoffs. I need to see the Ellis in the playoffs. When there's more pressure on you, when there's more nerves on you, you still got to come through, but you see signs that it's capable. So if you don't see in the playoffs, that lends to more viable and respectable and deserved criticisms when it doesn't show up
Right.
in the playoffs. Well, Ryan, before we do get out of here, again, thank you to Greeny Sports Cards, greenysportscards.com. Reach out to them. They do such great work, and they do such amazing things. WBC, the World Baseball Classic, like baseball's still in spring training. World Baseball Classic is going. Will you be watching, Bo Nathor's with Canada, Bazana's there with Australia, had a big homer, a couple big hits yesterday. Will you be watching? Will you be watching for the guards or USA or combination?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try to watch it. I mean, to be honest, but the odds are stacked against me. Like I said, I got two toddlers, I got a newborn, a house that never
Yeah.
sleeps. And a show to three shows to prep every single week. My free time is basically whatever 5 minute window I can steal between
Hmm.
chaos and
Yeah.
caffeine. So sitting down and watching 9 innings on a random Tuesday probably not happening. But that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean I'm not checked in. I'm definitely not checked out. Far from it. I'll be following everything. The scores, the highlights, the big swings, upsets, all of it. I can keep up without being glued to the TV. And, when those big moments hit live, that's when I'll jump in, that's when I'll take, make the time because, the WBC does have a way of creating those, stop what you're doing moments, moments that pull you in, whether you plan to or not. Kind of like, with the Winter Olympics, I did the same
Hmm.
thing with the men's hockey. Of course I'm rooting for Team USA. How could I not? The men's USA and women's hockey teams just brought home gold for the Winter Olympics. So doubling down with baseball would be incredible as well. It would feel like the perfect, continuation of the little run of American dominance we've been riding, I think. I am, the part I'm watching the closest is probably the one that actually matters for Cleveland the most is, obviously Travis Pinzada, like you mentioned with Team Australia. This is a kid who can force the Guardians' hand if he keeps trending upwards. He's
Hmm.
already the talk of town in spring training, and now he gets to step in, onto the world stage, with the entire baseball community watching. If he's, shines here, if he looks like he belongs in a top tier international pitching, if I think that can accelerate a lot of things. His
Yeah.
timeline, his opportunity, his path to Cleveland, could all be based on here. There's no better audition than the World Baseball Classic. Obviously, no better pressure cooker, if you will. This is a way that he can show he's ready for the next level. I mean, so yeah, I'm not going to be locked in for every pitch. I might not catch every pool play matchup, whatever, but I'll be following it. I'll be rooting for Team USA. I'll be keeping very close eye on Bazana, on Naylor in Canada, like you said. Because what Bazana does here could have a direct impact on what the Guardians do. In the regular season. Hopefully he pops. If he does pop, he has, if he has one of those tournaments where the whole baseball world is suddenly knows his name. The Guardians' plans might change a lot faster than anyone expected. So it could be fun. So
Could be fun. I think Logan Allen is pitching for I don't want to shoot from the hip. I know
sure.
he's pitching for someone out there. Like there's Guardians, and even like the Lake County captains tweeted out like how many former captains that have been in the Indians Guardians
Oh
organization are
wow.
part of the World Baseball Classic, whether they're still
Sure.
with us or not. Like they were one time in our organization and played for the captains. Like they had a long list of players that had been here that are playing. So definitely something to keep an eye on. You still got to keep an eye on Chase DeLauder. Like he's in and out of lineups in spring training. Like spring training is going to keep going on for the guys
Yeah.
that aren't playing for their country. So it's something to watch there. I something I've learned as a husband and a father. Like you don't have to watch every play in a game to understand what's going on.
True
Some
that.
people would try to combat that, but I found that it's not true. So we can still be well up to date on the World Baseball Classic. We're not watching every single pitch, but it'll be something to definitely follow. something I'm looking forward to is all the videos on social media. Highlights, of course, the USA. That's the main team to root for. But
Right.
um, USA not playing Dominican Republic until probably the knockout stages and the ending. Those scenes, man, like as a
It'll be fun.
soccer
Yeah.
fan, like the way that those fans get into it in a baseball setting, in Latin America and stuff. I don't know, like you're rooting for your country. Like those are the types of scenes that you absolutely love, and that's the things. And you probably see that during the World Cup this summer in the U.S. with other countries' fans coming over. There's going to be some wild and crazy, but hopefully all in line type celebrations. But I don't know. It makes me feel good seeing those things. But
Right.
if we face them, if the USA faces them, nope, it's all gonna be it's all USA
Right.
all the way. So that is going to wrap it up for this larger edition of the Voice of the Land this week. We will have another prospect next week. By this time next week, there will be some finalizations, I think, of contracts with
Mhm.
an announcements of some offseason moves as we do move into free agency and beyond the legal tampering period. Plenty to get into. Cavs will have another week of games in the bag. Plus, Guardians, I think there'll be a little bit more news with them coming next week as we kind of see how some of the youngsters are performing out there in Arizona. For Ryan Mosser, I am Kevin Arnold, thanking Greeny Sports Cards, LBV Productions, Peter Tellep, and all of you that tune in, whether live or on replay throughout the weeks. And remember, don't let anyone ever tell you it's just a game. We truly love you all 3,000. Don't talk about it. Be about it.
Real quick, right after this, my podcast, the Commissioner's Cast Fantasy Football Podcast, will be going live right after this with my co-host David Cahoon. We're going to go over our top 6 receivers. We've already covered our top 12 quarterbacks for this 2026 NFL draft. So check that out. Only 56 days until the draft, so really excited. So,
and I've made Ryan late for his show, so I'm not going to keep anybody
you're
else
good, bud.
anymore. Live life, all gas, no brakes. We'll see you next time right here on the Voice of the Land.
That's me. I got to press the stop button, don't I?